Hello and welcome back to my channel, The Homesteading Honey. Today I'm going to show you how I make bread. To start out, I have my KitchenAid mixer with the dough hook on it. I have my measuring cups and spoons. I have active dry yeast, honey, olive oil, salt, and spelt flour, and premium white flour from Montana Wheat. So to start out, I'm going to measure 5 cups of warm water into my KitchenAid mixing bowl. So I have here 5 cups of warm water. It should be warmer than room temperature, but not too hot that you don't want it to kill the yeast. So just keep it so that the temperature is so that you can still put your finger in without burning it. After you add the water, you want to add your yeast. You can use an instant dry yeast or an active dry yeast. I have used both. Today I'm using an active dry yeast. So I'm going to be using 3 tablespoons of this and putting it straight into the water. I will let it set for a few minutes to let it bloom. Then I will proceed with the salt and the olive oil. So I let this sit for a few minutes. And so I'm going to go ahead and add the salt. I use sea salt and 1 cup of olive oil. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start the mixer and let this mix up, and then I'm going to add the honey. So I've added all the honey into this, and now I'm going to give it just a little bit of a stir again. Okay, so we have the olive oil, the salt, the water, and the honey all mixed up in here, and the yeast. So I'm going to start mixing in my flour. I'm going to do the spelt flour first. I'm going to use a 1 cup measure and just carefully measure 7 cups of spelt flour into my mixing bowl. So we start with 1. I'm going to do 2 to start off with, and then I'm going to keep mixing it. So here we go. There's 2. So I'm just going to give this another mix. Add a couple more cups. This is cup number 4. So I have 11 cups of flour in my KitchenAid mixer. It always gets too full because it doesn't quite hold all of the dough. So what I'm going to do now is just remove the dough from the mixing bowl. I'm going to scrape this all off. And then I'm going to turn it onto a floured surface and continue kneading in the flour by hand. So I have 11 cups of flour in this bowl. I added another cup on top. And then I'm just gonna take my measuring cup and measure out 1 more cup on the table. So then that's 12 cups of flour. I will continue kneading it in with my hands. Just gonna do this, make it nice and spread it out so it doesn't stick. Just gonna empty this batch of dough onto the table. Make sure my bowl is scraped out well. Okay, it's all scraped out of the bowl. One thing I always do when I make bread like this is that I take my ring off, my wedding ring, because otherwise it could come off in the dough or it gets stuck with sticky dough. And so I always take it off when I make bread. That is the only time I take my ring off. So I always put it somewhere where I can find it again. Okay, this is looking really good. Just continue kneading till the dough has been mixed in. This is 12 cups of flour right here. We need to put in 14 cups, so I'll just keep working at this until it's nice and thick. The dough should not be sticky after you're done. It should be very solid, not dense, but pretty solid to where it's not sticky at all. So this is looking really nice. It's still sticky underneath. So at this point, even though I haven't yet measured in the full 14 cups, I'm just going to take my scoop, my flour scoop, and just sprinkle flour on top until I have the right consistency. And the right consistency is when it's not sticky anymore. You want to make sure your dough is not sticky. If it doesn't have enough flour, your bread will most likely not rise correctly, or it will fall as it's baking. So make sure you have a good stiff dough. Okay, it keeps looking better. Needs a little more flour. Just gonna keep adding some. A little sticky in there, so I'm just going to add a little bit of flour on top. All right, we are almost done. I am going to add just a little bit more flour, not too much. Just give it a light dusting. Work that in. It's looking really good. Just kind of wipe off the table with some of the flour here. The dough isn't sticky, so it'll pick it up nicely. It smells amazing. The dough is popping with those little yeast pops, and we are done. So the next thing I'm going to do is take a lightly oiled paper towel, put some olive oil on it, just a little bit, and then just oil the inside of my bowl. This prevents the dough from sticking as it rises. There, it's got a nice coating of olive oil. So now I'm just gonna grab my dough right here and put it into the bowl. There we go. In about 30 minutes from now, this will have doubled in size. I'm gonna cover it with a towel and put it in a warm place to rise, and then I'll be back. And as always, when you make something, there is a mess. So, as is my policy, if you haven't heard this before, clean up after you're done. So I'm just gonna go right now, and I'm just gonna clean up the kitchen and wipe off the table, and then once the dough is done rising, I'm gonna keep using this spot to make my bread into loaves. So the dough has been rising for a little over 30 minutes now, and I'm ready to take it out of the bowl and make it into loaves. But first I'm going to take all my bread pans and put some oil in it. I usually make 6 loaves, so here's my 6 pans. I don't have any cooking spray, so I am just using my olive oil and a napkin, and I'm just greasing the insides of the pan. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of olive oil into each pan. Just enough that I can use my paper towel and just wipe it. So I'm just going to take this, make sure it's greased nicely so the bread will come out of the pan easily. So I've greased all my pans, and so now I'm going to just put some flour on the table right here. Just going to spread it around a little bit. And here is my dough. It has more than doubled in size, actually, but it looks beautiful. Just look at that. So I'm going to just dump this out onto the floured surface. Like this. And after it comes out, I'm going to just take it and knead it a little bit. Flip it over. A nice round loaf here. Then I'm going to take a knife, a really sharp knife, and divide it into 6 pieces. So I'm just going to divide my loaf into 6 pieces. They might not all be equal size, so I'm just going to divide it and then maybe change it up a little bit. Okay, here's 1. So I didn't get evenly 6, so I'm just going to, I have some dough here that's a little smaller, so I'm just going to take a little bit off of each one to make 6 loaves. So now I have 6 little piles of dough here. See how nice that looks? So now I can take each one, knead it flat, just like that, roll it up carefully, firmly pinch the sides together, bring in the ends, I'm going to shape it into a nice loaf. It will look small, but trust me, these get really big. So I like to keep them on the smaller side. And then just place it into your pan, just like that. And there's one loaf. Now let's finish the others. Going to take it and cover it with a towel and let it sit to rise for another 20 to 30 minutes. At this point, it's also good to preheat the oven. So I like to bake my bread at 350. So my bread is ready to go in the oven. It's been about a little over an hour actually, so it actually has to rise longer than 30 minutes. This has risen for about maybe an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm just going to pop it into the oven. So there it is, and I'm going to let it bake for about 20 minutes. The bread has been baking for about 25 minutes now, so I'm going to take it out of the stove. I believe it's done. And now that I've made the bread, it's time to eat some. I have a fresh loaf of bread, still warm from the oven. I have some of my homemade apple butter, and here is some butter. Oh, look at that beautiful crumb. Wow. Just going to slice. always, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.